What's going on, traders, investors? Welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Nick and I am super excited to do this video here today. I put together this little spreadsheet here, and what it's going to do is we're going to be able to talk about what it would take to make a full-time living from your trading or your investing, whether you're doing stocks, whether you're trading Forex, whatever you're doing. We're going to break down what it would actually take to make a full-time living from just your trading, and we've got some hypothetical examples we're going to go through. It should be really fun. Stay tuned. Let's get into it. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, do me a favor, subscribe to the channel down below. I do these videos for free. It takes time out of my day and I pay an editor. So if you would, all I ask is support the channel by giving a thumbs up down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. Let's talk about this. So you want to be a full-time trader, or you want to do this as a full-time career. Trust me, I was with you at one point. That was my absolute dream. At this point, trading is a big part of my life. It is a big part of my career, and it is something that I do part-time. I don't do it full-time because I run a company. We do media work, and we also do some software services, and we offer some services to traders and investors here on YouTube. You can find out more information about the stuff that we do down below in the description. But basically, my dream has always been to trade, for a living, just like many traders and investors. Now, there are some things that we need to think about. There's some requirements that we have to go through, and we're going to talk about them today. And we're going to also talk about kind of the realities of trying to trade for a living exclusively. It's not easy, but it is something that I think is possible, and we're going to go through some examples. So again, what I've got here is I've got a spreadsheet where basically I've put together a couple different calculations where we can calculate how much money we're going to be making from our trading account based on different variables. It comes down to a couple different key indicators that we're going to be able to talk and calculate using this spreadsheet. So we've got big name items like the yearly return. How much percentage per year can you actually get consistently, not 1 year, not 2 years, but year after year? What can you consistently do, right? Because we need to live off of this money. If we're going to be doing this for a living, we need to actually be able to support ourselves financially off of what we are doing, because we're going to be taking withdrawals out of the account. We've got that thought of here in the yearly expenses tab. Okay, so yearly expenses. And we're gonna talk about some different things here because people have different lifestyles. People from different parts of the world, they require more or less money in order to survive, right? If you pay rent, if you buy a house, if you have loans, right? There are different things for every single person. So we'll go through some examples as well. This video might be a little bit on the longer side, but stick around. It is a very, very important one. And if you wanna take this as a business, if you wanna treat trading and investing like a business, these are the sort of questions you need to ask yourself and be able to support the answers to. So we've got yearly returns, we've got yearly expenses, right? This is the real world. We've got to pay bills, right? So, and finally, a very, very key factor, which is our initial amount. How much money are we going to be starting with in order to trade or invest in the markets? And assuming that we're doing this completely, which is a whole nother conversation. If you want to do this exclusively for a living, which to me, that's not ideal. I like to do other things with my life. I like to create content like this on YouTube. I like to work with my employees and my teammates. There's other things than just trading that I personally would like to do. But for the sake of this experiment, we are talking, you want to 100% only trade your money and chill and make enough money to support yourself. A pretty fair dream for a lot of people, and maybe someday that's going to be where I'm at. For me, again, you have to ask yourself, do you only want to trade or do you not? That's a whole nother conversation to have. But assuming you do, assuming you only want to trade and that is it, we need to talk about these three main variables because that's what's going to ultimately calculate this chart over here on the right. Okay, so let's get into it. So we've got our three variables. What you'll see is that we've got these tabs. Most of these are going to be calculated. What we're going to do here is let's just start basic. Okay, so let's say that we have some amount of money. Again, we're gonna be starting with whether it's 50,000, whether it's 10,000, whether it's 5,000. People have different ranges that they can afford. But generally speaking, what I'm gonna do is I'm going to take a amount of money that here in the United States is a reasonable, not easy, but a reasonable amount of money that somebody with a decently paying job could work themselves up to. I think in the US, it's somewhere in the range of 50 to 70,000 or 45 to 70,000 is like the average take-home salary for someone in the US that is employed. So we're gonna take something like 50,000 as the yearly salary, but I'm actually gonna do a experiment where somebody has saved up. Let's do our first one with somebody who has $200,000 in the bank. Okay, so they have $200,000 and they're willing to invest this in the market. Well, is $200,000 enough money to start out trading and actually do it for a living, right? Do nothing else except trade. No part-time jobs, no other sources of income, purely just trading. Well, if you have $200,000 in your trading account, you're gonna have to answer a couple of key questions. What's your yearly percentage return? What do you have to use in order to survive yourself? How much money can you spend per year on the minimum side to actually support yourself, right? And finally, that initial capital, which we already determined, is gonna be $200,000 for this starting example. We'll do some more, so stick around with me. Okay, so let's say you have $200,000 and you have to ask yourself, well, what is your yearly expense going to be? What you'll run into is that you're gonna have to be honest with yourself here. If I'm being honest, the minimum that I could probably survive of in the US for me would probably be in the realm of $200,000. That includes things like my rent. That includes things like if you have car payments, if you have groceries, if you have electric bills, water bills, all that sort of thing. I'd say 20,000 is probably a very, modest way of living, but you could probably do it in the US, okay? Let's go with our first experiment here. So basically, we've identified that $20,000 per year is going to be our yearly expense. That's how much we need to spend in order to stay sane, in order to stay living, right? We have an initial amount of 200,000, which you can see here in the account size, and we've got a yearly return of something like 12%. Now, I know that this is gonna be a controversial topic because it always is on my channel. Some people say you can make 50% in a year. Some people say you can make 100, some people say 1,000, some people say 5, some people say 10, some people say 15. So we'll experiment with some different numbers. But let's talk about, just for a starting example, let's say that you're a decent trader, you're not a game-changing trader, but you wanna do this for a living. You're the average person who is decent at trading and you're able to make consistently something around 12% per year. Now, what this entails is that some years, let's say you might have 20% in a year, some years you might have 15, some years you might have 5 lost, right? Some years you might have 10% loss. Now, bear with me when I talk about trading returns. Again, it brings on people who say, well, I don't want to be doing this unless I can make 50% plus per year. Well, let me tell you, when you have more money on the line, you have to be more cautious with your money, right? So making something like 50% in a year on a $50 account or a $100 account might be a little different than somebody who is trying to make decent returns on a $500,000 account. You don't want to risk the same level if you have more money on the line for most people, myself included, right? So something like 12%, something like 20%, 30%, that's a region where, okay, when you have a larger amount of money, that's a decent amount of change coming into your account. So let's start with 12 and let's just talk about it. So we've got our generated amounts here, and what you'll see is that, let's say we started in 2020. Our account size is $200,000 to start, and we make 12% every year consistently, right? For 10 years, going all the way until 2030, okay? Well, let's see how we did. So in the first year, with our $200,000 account, right? Most people don't have $200,000, but with time, this is something that if somebody is really diligent, someone really puts in the effort to be very smart with their money, they don't go on wild vacations, they don't spend it all at the bars, right? They're conservative and they build up that capital for a few years, or they already have been building up that capital for a few years, and they take it and they choose to invest. Well, if they make $24,000 in the first year, hey, we're good. We made our $20,000 that we need for living expenses. And hey, look, the account also grew by $4,000. Not too bad. So first of all, we lived off of our trading. Second of all, we grew the account. That's a double yes. That's a double thumbs up from me. So let's go forward and let's say, well, now next year comes around. Look at that. We're at $204,000 for the year. And what do? Well, this year we make around $24,000. 480. So a little bit more than the previous year, and slowly grow it now up to 208, right? Meanwhile, we're living off of this. We've paid $20,000 out to ourselves, and we still came out with a profit. And this is just from a 12% return on a $200,000 account, assuming that $20,000 per year is what we can live off of. Now, things happen. You get medical situations, you get family situations. And so for me, $20,000 is not a long-term goal for me to be living off of. Obviously, this is not something that is ideal for anybody, but it is what it is. So, ideally, we'd be making tons of money and we'd live off of tons of money coming into our personal accounts. But this is trying to actually make a logical approach to how you could actually consistently make enough to live off of in your account by itself. So 20,000 per year, we do it again and again and again. And after 10 years, we're up to a $270,000 account. We grew and we lived off of it for 10 years. This is fantastic. To me, this is a really, really cool goal because not only is your investment growing, but you're also doing something that you enjoy, doing other things in your life, you're doing other hobbies, you're spending time with family, you're able to do other things, right? To me, that's a beautiful thing. But we can experiment with this more. Let's say that you're a little bit better of a trader and you could do something like 15%. Check the difference out, guys. When we change it from 12% per year to 15%. 3 little percent. And this is why, again, we get so many comments about, oh, I want to make 50% per year, or I want to make 100% per year. But here's the thing, 3 little percentage points. Watch this number right here. So we ended up 282,000 living this whole time off of our trading. So we're not just storing it, we're actually living. We're withdrawing the whole time and surviving off of this money. Watch the difference here in just a second when I change this number from 3% more. When we go 15% per year, watch this. This is the power of compounding your growth, compounding your gains, even just by 3% more per year. Watch this. $443,000 at the end of that same period. It's mind-boggling. Just 3 more percent, and we did exponentially better. That's the power of not necessarily massive gains, but consistent gains, right? Because when you get to something like this, obviously, if we make 50% per year, you're gonna have incredible gains. It's gonna be huge, right? You're gonna have $13 million in the bank. The problem with this, guys, in my opinion, with why I would not shoot for something like 50% per year, is I've had the experience of speaking with and working with a lot of traders. I've back tested tons, maybe 1,000+ systems, program tools, program bots, program all sorts of different strategies. And 50% per year looks great on paper until it doesn't. The unfortunate thing is to get these sort of returns, a lot of times your drawdowns are gonna be massive and you run the risk of losing everything that you have in the account. And to me, and probably to you, if we wanna live off of this, we can't go around talking about losing everything in the account. That can't even be an option. We need to drastically reduce the chances of that ever happening so that we don't have to go back to work, right? If we lose everything in the account, that's it, we're gone. We're back to work and we are back to, trying to just survive out there, which if we're in this situation, if we have $200,000, we wanna be conservative, we wanna be realistic. So to me, 50% per year, maybe you have years where you return 50% and that's great, but can you do 50% every single year? If you show me somebody who can do that with a track record that's more than a few years, I would be really, really impressed if it's done with a verified broker, right? Show me a MyFX book with a verified broker, with somebody who has 3 years plus of 50% returns per year. I would be really, really impressed. It's very, very unlikely, and the drawdowns are probably massive, and for every one account that you can see that maybe does that, it's probably 1,000 accounts that blew up along the way, losing everything. And so that's the kind of the vision that a lot of times we see on social media for this stuff, but we don't ever really see in actuality. It's very hard to find anybody who actually has those returns and can prove it and can show it. Warren Buffett is one of the most renowned, best investors of all time. Sure, he's not a short-term trader, and people will argue that you can make more money from short-term trading, but regardless, he's praised around the world as one of the best businessmen and traders or investors in history, right? He made somewhere in the neighborhood in the last 50 years of an average of 18, 19% per year, and he's amassed billions doing that. You don't need massive percentage returns. You just need patience and you need the ability to consistently do something well. That's all it is, right? And to me, that's not a depressing thing, because sometimes newer traders, they get, well, oh man, I'm not going to make a ton of money off of 15%, 20%. And I get it. I understand. When I first started trading, I did not have very much money, and that would have been kind of like a down, feel bad. It'd be like, well, I'm not going to make a ton of money. But the point is, if you can build up capital, if you can work a second job, if you can work, cutting grass is what I used to do to build capital. You can take these returns and keep them small. You can just go for something that's consistent, like 15, 20, 25%. Good traders that I know, some of the best traders I know, they shoot for 25, 30% per year. They do it pretty consistently, and that is absolutely incredible. They've got so much going for them with just that number, because take a look at this. What if we did 20% per year? What if we did 20% per year? Again, we go back to what we're looking at. Well, our first year we made $40,000. Our living expenses were $20,000, and look at that. We tacked on $20,000 more to our initial capital in just 1 year, okay? These are numbers that I think are still possible. They're just going to require somebody who's a little bit more skilled as a trader. Because remember, you're going to have different years. You're going to have minus 5% years. You're going to have plus 15%. You're going to have plus 30. You're going to have, these are just hypothetical examples. You can have negative 10%, right? So you have different years, but the average is an average yearly return of something like 20% would be really, really impressive. Okay. So with that said, if you could do that for 10 years, you'd be really, really well off. Look at that. Not only did you live off of what you were doing for 10 years and doing something that you hypothetically enjoy, right? Or you should enjoy, you also at the end of that are left with an account that almost has $1 million in it. $800,000 plus in this account. So that's fantastic. But so that's kind of that. But let's take this one for example. Let's say that after the first 10 years, we took an $843,000 account and we said, okay, well now I want to up my living expenses. Now I want to buy a house. Now I want to buy a boat. I want to go bigger with my life. I want to expand my lifestyle a little bit. I've earned this. Very, very fair thing to do. If you were disciplined enough to do something like this, to save and to build accounts and to live modestly along the way, absolutely, I believe you totally should reap the rewards of your good investments. So let's say that you take this $843,000, and let's say that now you say, well, I'm going to try and live off of this amount in a much bigger way. Let's try $75,000 a year. A much more, let's say that we took this number, right? 843,000, right? So we're doing the next 10 years, right? So we just got done doing 10 years before where we were doing the $20,000 per year spending, and we started with 200,000. 10 years later, we're starting again. Now we want to live a little bit bigger. Okay. Well, now let's say we take $75,000 out of the account each year to live off of. We're going to live a bit bigger. Okay. Well, look at this. We're still going to see some incredible growth in the next 10 years. So this is a total period of 20 years. We've lived off of our trading, and now not only have we lived off of it, but we've upped our spending. Right? And this is just the average living expenses. Let's say that you want to spend $150,000 one year and zero the next year. Not really realistic, but I guess hypothetically possible. So 20 years now, we've got a 20-year plan, and still we're living off of what we're doing. We're reaping the rewards of our trading by paying ourselves out a little bit more now. And at the end of that period, 3.8 million. That's incredible. That's so powerful. Not only are we living off of it, now we're withdrawing $75K a year, which is good money to spend on and to live off of. Very, very modest, very, good living kind of budget. And we're talking $3.8 million still in the account, even after spending money along the way. This is the practical approach, in my opinion, to actual trading success, is looking at these three main variables. You've got yearly return, you've got initial amount, and you've got yearly expenses. Now, obviously, if you're better, if you can return something like 25, let's say even 30%, your returns are going to be exponentially bigger. And this is something that I don't think is impossible. I think it's just very, very difficult to do consistently. You may have a year where you make 30%. Heck, you may have a year where you made 70, 80%. In fact, I was looking at a system that I recently was trading. I still am trading this system. If I had traded this system in 2019, with heavy amounts of much bigger position sizes, let's say, I would have made something in the neighborhood of 75% in that year. Sounds pretty good, right? What kind of system makes 75% in a year? That sounds incredible. Well, it would have been, but then in 2020, not only would I have had a much worse year, I would have blown the entire account down negative 100%. But I didn't do that. I didn't go for 75% per year because I know through my testing, I'm a background in computer science. I've programmed and built a ton of different systems. I've tested the markets a lot. By no means do I know everything, but I know a decent amount of my own trading, and that if I go for 75% per year, then what's going to happen inevitably is there's going to be big problems like what we currently are experiencing with a lot of people at home quarantined during this situation. We've had some chaotic markets, right? And so with that, drawdowns and things like that get exploded. I know we've received on our end, hundreds of emails, hundreds of messages, direct messages and comments on YouTube from people who are blowing their accounts during this time because they were going big, they were making great money in 2019, but then 2020 came along and just absolutely threw them off the road, right? So you have to put it all into perspective. It's not important how much money you can make in the short term. This is the long-term goal. We're talking 10, 20 years here, guys. We're talking about exponential growth that actually matters, that actually is realistic, right? So obviously there's some other things to think about here. Let's say that you have $10,000 in your account, and let's say that you don't care to spend any of this money. You don't want to pay yourself out. You just want to grow an account. Check this out, guys. If you could make something like, let's say 20% per year, even if you're just doing this as a part-time job, this is the other cool thing. Let's say we don't spend any money. This is $0 per year. We are reinvesting every penny that we make back into our company, our business, our trading account, right? Well, take a look at this. After the first year, you make $2,000 on your $10,000 account. Not bad, that's good stuff. You make it $2,000 off of $10,000, and that's from a 20% return for the year. Now you're at $12,000. You keep doing this, and look at this kind of return. By 2030, you're up to almost $75,000 in 10 years of growing a relatively small account. Now I know $10,000 for many people is a lot of money. It is a chunk of change, and depending on where you are in the world, this is more or less, meaningful to you. In the US, $10,000, don't get me wrong, it is a good bit of money. But for somebody who is working and making the average salary in the US, it may not be the biggest thing in the whole world. Now, for other countries, for other parts of the world, that might be a lot more and it might be less, right? It comes down to your country, your own personal situation. That's why I was saying it's very important to understand these variables for yourself, what's comfortable to you. A lot of times, what you will see from retail traders is that they don't have much of this, so they go for a huge amount of this, right? They don't have a lot of money to start, and so what they do, I'll just make 2,000% per year, or 200% per year, whatever. And what it causes them to do is to lose all of this. And that's what I'm trying to talk to you guys about, because I've seen it too many times. I've worked with too many traders who have lost all their money trying to go for a big number here and lose everything that's over here, right? Because they want that short-term gain. They don't want to wait for 10 years. But if you have the patience, if you're still in this video with me towards the end of the video, then you have the patience, clearly. You have the willingness to stick something out. You're gonna hear noise, you're gonna hear people all over the internet. I'm not even selling anything in this video, like I have nothing. I'm telling you the honest truth here. In my opinion, the growth is not short-term. The growth is doing what we see here over on the right-hand side. This is what's going to actually change your life, is finding a plan that works for you, sticking to it, knowing what you should expect generally from your yearly returns, not monthly, not weekly, right? But yearly returns, looking long-term, treating this like a serious business and investment, and understanding that it's the long game. It is the end game, the long game. What is it gonna look like in 10 years? Because I can tell you from my own experience, most people quit Forex, they quit investing, they quit stocks, they quit anything markets in 6 months or less because they go for a huge amount here and they neglect that it takes money to make money and that they have real life situations that they need to think about. This is a business, and business is real world. It's not in the cloud stuff, right? It's practical, it's logical, it's real. You don't get a lot of money from nothing. You have to put in the time, you have to learn a system, you have to build a strategy, and you have to know what's realistic. For me, I would say that something like 10 to 30% per year is a decent goal to think about. 10% being low for people who are a little bit a little bit earlier on in their journey. I'd say 10% is something to look at as a general target. Don't look at all those social media people who are gonna say, you should make 100% per more a year. It's great on paper, but it's very hard to prove it. And I know very few people who could actually show a track record that's verified they're actually doing it. So to me, take it as you will. This is my opinion. Let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. Give this video a thumbs up if you made it to the end. I really appreciate you. Thanks so much. We'll see you next time.